Cross River State, Nigeria, the lovely, beautiful Bassey Ikpi.
Today I remember my grandmother as she attempts to connect with her second children. She finds the only English word she knows from somewhere hidden in the belly of her 4-foot 9-inch body, and instead of "awonke," she greets us with "bye-bye," beckoning us into her thin, clay-colored arms. Those arms mothered my mother, taught her how to mother me. I inhale the history from her skin, and she tells me of the small, scared girl carried away on an iron bird to America. Seems like that same bird has returned only to replace that perfect girl with me, this strange, tongue-tied woman, the one that can barely say hello without the clicks and moans, the dips and tones of the white man's language. It breaks my heart to realize that I can only love her clearly in English. But this is not my only tongue. Insolent and heavy with the awkward movements of amber waves east or west, this is not my village, and my heart still longs for my grandmother's voice, steady and strong, crossing rivers and oceans, rounding buildings of mud, thatched roof, steel, glass, concrete, confusion. Yet I am afraid that it will not find me here in this land, miles from the one that welcomed me into this world, lifetimes before I existed in this cosmopolitan space. Nbong nong yi ben yami. Nbong nong yi ben yami. What will I teach my children? What will I tell them of where I've been? The earth that shaped me, the hands that held me. What will they call home, and will they hear it if and when it calls them? Oklahoma, DC, Brooklyn will not help me remember Ikom, Ugep, Calabar. Will also not let me forget fingers sticky with fufu swallowed whole, tongue stinging numb from plantain fried in palm oil, but I have lost the grit and the grain of my grandmother's gari. I can't taste past this nostalgic lump in my throat. I can't stomach the reality of this, my divided culture. African, American. I am everything, and I am nothing. Nigeria is quietly begging me to remember, while America slowly urges me to forget. But it's for my past, it's for my future, it's for my children, and it is for you, my grandmother, that I must always, always remember.
Okay, Bassey Ikpi, we're in Calabar.
Yes.
Is this your hometown?
I consider it my hometown because my hometown is a village called Ugep, but I claim Calabar as my hometown.
Okay.
Yeah,
so were you born in Ugep?
No, I was born in Ikom.
Ikom, where is Ikom?
This is in Cross River State. It's not far from... Wait, no, I don't know my geography. I'm going to say I don't know where it is. Yeah. It might be far, it might not be far. I don't know. Okay. I've only been there twice since I was born.
The impression I had was that you were born in the U.S.
Everyone thinks I was born in the U.S.
Why?
Because of my accent, because I'm very American, according to them.
Yeah.
But I'm Nigerian through and through.
Nigerian. Okay, now tell us, when did you leave for the U.S.?
When I was 4.5, almost 5 years old.
Okay. And then you left with your parents, and you've been in the U.S. for how long?
Without visiting, or just how long in general?
Total in general.
You trying to get me to say how old I am?
Yeah. Well.
32 years.
32 years, okay.
Yes.
Now in the US, what were you doing? Poetry, you were writing and doing stuff in the literary circle.
Yes.
And then you've got this hit video on YouTube with your, the performance with Def Jam Poetry.
Yes.
Homeland.
Homeward.
Homeward,
yes.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So, Homeward, what is Homeward about?
Homeward, I actually remember when I wrote it. I was living in New York, and I was in the village. I don't know, people who are familiar with New York, there's the East Village and there's the West Village. Yeah. And I was in the West Village near NYU, and I was feeling very, I don't want to say sad, but just a little nostalgic. I was homesick, but I was homesick for Nigeria and homesick for Maryland, where my parents were. Yeah. I had just moved to New York. It was very, difficult adjustment for me. Yeah. And the first thing that I wrote was, East or West, this is not my village. That was the first line that I wrote. And then the poem sort of built around it when I started thinking about, you know, the fact that I couldn't communicate with my grandmother. She's since passed. I couldn't communicate with her, yet there was still this thing that kept me rooted to Nigeria, though I didn't have the language or the words to sort of express what Nigeria was and who I was in terms of being a Nigerian, but also feeling very American and knowing that that's also a part of my identity. And the poem was written as a way to express the fact that I am Nigerian. Here's the things that make me Nigerian, but I'm American. Here are the things that make me American. And I'm trying to find a way to put these things together in order to make a composite of who I am.
And there's a particular striking verse. It says, Nigeria is quietly begging me to remember while America slowly urges me to forget.
Yes.
That is powerful.
Thank you.
So, how do you explain that?
Well, it's very easy to assimilate when you come to America. Yeah. It's very easy. You need to speak English. You just have to. My parents didn't speak to me in our native Ugep language because they needed me to speak English. And our group is so small that even if there were other Nigerians around, there were Yoruba, or there were Igbo, there were Hausa, so they could speak to each other, but me, I needed to speak English or I wouldn't be able to communicate. So they stopped speaking to me and only not forced, but only made me speak English. As I grew in America, there were certain things that my parents injected as Nigerian, what they brought from home, but I was living in America when they were doing it, so it was kind of odd because that's not how it was done in America. So I had a really tough time growing up, sort of balancing what my parents knew as new immigrants and where it is that we were as new immigrants. Nigeria begging me to remember was me wanting desperately to remember at least some of the language, because I was speaking it fluently up until I was 5. My dad even said I was speaking broken fluently until I was 5. So I wanted to remember, and I know that there's so much about Nigeria that I don't know, and I hate the fact that I don't know because I am Nigerian. And then, you know, America urging me to forget is you have to fit in. You have to be part of us. You have to dress like us, look like us, talk like us. You have to do the things that we do, or you're going to be an outsider. And when you're young, you don't want to be an outsider. So I always had this sort of duality where I've always been proud of being Nigerian, but being Nigerian to me was what my mom cooked at home.
As the gari.
Yeah, like, you know, eba, you know, fufu. Well, we didn't have yam back then because it wasn't readily available. The more I grew up, the more things were being imported in. But back then, it wasn't a lot that was being imported. So
you had the pull of Nigeria, and then America wanted to retain you.
Yeah, not even America. The pull of America was just, I just wanted to fit in. I needed to be able to relate to where I was as opposed to where I came from. But I didn't want to forget where I came from in any significant way.
And then you said, tongue-tied woman. What's tongue-tied woman?
Well, again, when I left, I was speaking fluently. I could talk to my grandmother, I could talk to different people. When I returned for the first time, I was tongue-tied. Well, I didn't have the words anymore. My tongue just was not able to, even if I knew the word, the pronunciation was American. So I couldn't even say it correctly, even if I did know the words.
So can you say something in Efik or?
Gosh, I'm not Efik. Efik is Calabar.
Is it in your local dialect?
You put me on the spot. I mean, there's certain things that are said and I can answer back, and like awonke, that means welcome. Aploka, that means good day or good morning.
And then if you say these things, do people from that part of the country of Nigeria think, why is she sounding American in the local dialect? Is that part of the tongue-tied, you know?
Well, they expect it. They're shocked that I say the little bit that I say, but they already know that my tongue is heavy with America. They already know that. So they're just excited that I even tried, you know, so.
And then you said I inhaled the history of her skin. Can you explain that?
This is my grandmother. Just that ancestral spirit, and knowing that when I'm with her, I'm not just with her, I'm with all the people who came before her and all the people who came before me. And the fact that my Americanness is very recent, but my Nigerianness goes back for centuries. And that's what that inhaling the history from the skin means. It's so funny, nobody ever asks me what these things mean. They never do, and I have explanations for everything, but that's what that means.
I live in the UK, and I know quite a lot of Nigerians who live in the UK, and they've got kids in the UK. And there's a part in your poetry that says, "Where will my children call home?" And that sort of identifies with millions of Nigerians in the diaspora with the questions, where will my children call home? What influenced that? Well,
I've always called, whenever I say I'm going home, Nigeria is what I mean, because that's what my parents always meant when they said home. So-and-so went home. It's Nigeria. But as I got older and like went off to university, home was, you know, where my parents were. And it stopped being Nigeria. And then as I got older, it became interchangeable. People would have to say, which home are you talking about? I have a 7-year-old son who's here for the first time, in Nigeria for the first time, and I wonder what it is that he's going to take away from this experience. He's having a great time. He's in the village right now, and he's having a great time.
When you say the village, what part?
Ugep.
Ugep.
He's in Ugep, and he's having a fantastic time running around, being free, and you know, everyone knew him before he came, so he's you know, very popular, and he's very excited about that. But I want him to walk away from this experience knowing that this is where he's from. This is where
this is home.
This is his home.
Now, you've written quite a number of poems, and how did you start writing poetry?
I started writing when I was 8. Having learned English at 5, which is late, you know, I realized the power of language and being understood. And as soon as I started being able to speak English, I learned to read very, very quickly. And I was enamored with this idea that these letters that I had learned, you could put them together in a certain way and convey a message. I know that's kind of deep for a 5-year-old, but in a child's terms, I was very impressed with. That's what drew me to books. When I was 8 is when I wrote my first poem, and I tell people it's because I couldn't draw. Like where kids were drawing things and you know, putting it on the refrigerator or whatever. I can't draw, and I wrote a poem as opposed to drawing in class one day, and it was about who I was. I write a lot of. I've always written things that were self-referential. If not autobiographical, then there are elements of it that I take from my own experience or from my own emotional journey. I have a poem called for Phyllis Hyman, who was this amazing American jazz singer, and she committed suicide in 1995. And I read a book about her in one sitting. Like I went to the bookstore to do something else, and I saw the book and I read it from cover to cover. And when I was done, I wrote the book. But I mean, sorry, I wrote the poem. But there were certain elements of the poem that were references to ways that I was feeling at the time that I could put into her life because of the things that she was struggling with. That caused her to take her own life.
Okay, let's take you away from you. Which one is will you say is the most your favorite poem from all the poems you've written?
My favorite poem is the Phyllis Hyman poem.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's the one I've not listened to. Not read. Okay.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
Homeward is my favorite.
I think Homeward is everybody's favorite. And it's called Like Sometimes, but people call it Silence is the Loudest Kind of Noise. Those two are the two that people seem to like. Oh, Choices.
Okay.
Choices is another one of my favorite poems, because Choices is probably my most 100% honest poem. There's no magic of metaphor or simile. It's straightforward. What I'm telling you is exactly what it is that I want you to know. So Choices and my Phyllis Hyman poem are my two favorites.
Okay. Bassey, you spent more time in Nigeria now, and what are you doing in Nigeria?
I'm trying to get some TV stuff off the ground. I have a couple of TV projects that I'm hoping will air within the next 6 months to a year. It's been tough. Nigeria doesn't make anything easy, but I'm doing that. And then I also, this is an exclusive, I also just started writing a book.
Okay.
And just meaning like a week ago. No, not even a week ago. 4 days ago, I started writing a book.
And you just got tired of America?
No, it wasn't about being tired. It was about, I've always moved in my career in increments.
Okay.
I started off as a spoken word artist, poet, and I did, Deaf Poetry Jam, and that was like a lot. And I did, I toured, I was on, different award shows, and I did a lot during that time. But after a certain point, it stopped being enough for me. I was no longer, it became drudgery. I would, I got another flight. I was flight after flight, and I just didn't want to do that anymore. And it wasn't good for me health-wise to be on the move so much. And so I started doing public speaking, which is I took what I knew from poetry, the being able to stand in front of people and talk, and I moved that into public speaking. I started an NGO called the Seaway Project, and I like moving the goalposts.
Okay.
I like moving the goalposts.
Tell us more about the Seaway Project. What is it about?
The Seaway Project is mental health awareness for the global Black community. So not just in the U.S., but also just all over the world. It's to raise awareness about mental illness and mental health care, because Black people all over the world, and I'm learning particularly Nigerians, are woefully ignorant about what mental illness is.
I was going to draw your attention to that, because in Nigeria we tell mental health is just seen as a taboo. You shouldn't talk about it. And if you've got someone in your family with mental health, you rather just probably lock them down and not talk about it. So how's your experience been so far? It's
been, I have to be honest, it's been terrible. It's been terrible. I actually spoke at a mental health conference in Lagos, and I was shocked that that even was a thing. And I met a lot of doctors and people who were trying to sort of to further the cause. But there was a part where they had like a Q&A session, and the questions that were being asked were, you know how they say there's no stupid questions?
Yeah.
There's stupid questions. There are questions where, come on, like really think about this, really. This woman asked, if a person with depression bites me, will I get depressed too? Wow. Yeah, and was serious about it. And I just was like, come on, really? Like you really, did you just ask this question? And she was dead serious. There's another woman who wrote me a very, 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 very long email. And in the email, she said that because she agreed that mental illness was caused by chemical imbalance in the brain, but she believed that chemical imbalances were caused by sin. So then she went on to list all the sins and the possible mental health correlations that adultery, depression, fornication, bipolar. Like it was ridiculous, basically. But one of the things and the problems that I have is that there's a lot of that sort of juju. Yeah. Somebody put something on so and so, which is why this happens and that happens, and that's dangerous because a lot of people die. There are a lot of suicides that people don't say are suicides. They say, oh, he got sick. He got sick suddenly. Now he turned sick, but it's a suicide, and the fact that people don't talk about it makes it even worse. Which is why, if possible, I encourage people to talk about it, write about it. The Seaway Project has a a initiative every first Monday in July called No Shame Day. And what No Shame Day is, the day where people can write about it, tweet about it, blog about it, talk about it, whatever, and have that support, communal support of no shame. No one will shame you. No one will say anything about derogatory about you without the army sort of coming in.
Now that you mentioned social media, you're quite active on Twitter, and I did mention to you that you come across as very strong, and like you just say your mind. You don't care whose ox is God. Have you had some backlash because Nigerians are quite uncomfortable with strong, especially strong women expressing their views? Have you had any experience?
Constantly, but at the same time, I mean, I've been told you need to change the way that you tweet if you're trying to do this. You need to, you know, not talk about this so much if you want to do this. And I think it's ridiculous. I think that even the people who are telling me this know that it's ridiculous, but how is anything going to change if someone doesn't change it? Like, the reason why I'm active on social media is because my writing is very, it's almost sad, you know what I mean? It's almost like it's just sad all the time, and I'm not a sad person, and I have a lot of opinions that I don't always want to write about in a full essay or in a full article or in a poem. I just want to say that thing in 3 tweets and then go about my business. It's also a good way for people who are fans, I don't really like that word, to sort of interact in a way, and because of the Seaway Project, it also allows people to contact me if they need to talk about something or be directed to mental health facilities and things like that. So
I'm going to draw you into politics because I'm quite passionate about politics.
Okay.
Do you feel frustrated about the situation in Nigeria?
Absolutely. The thing, I'm not as familiar with everything as, you know, I'm not going to pretend that I am, but there's certain things that I think are just basic, and it's frustrating to me that the Nigerian government does not think is basic. Electricity is basic. Why are there still power outages in 2013, about to be 2014? Why? The whole strike where the kids were out of school for 6 months, and that's not a priority. Why? You know, Stella
Odua.
And her. Why?
BMW.
Yes, and the international airport is trash. It is probably the worst airport. I've traveled a lot. It is probably one of the, if not the worst airport I've ever been to.
Even with the cosmetic changes,
it's trash. It does not function properly. What airport doesn't have computer check-ins to move things along? What international airport only has one what do you
scanning machine?
Right, one international airport, one. Unless you're first class, then you go this way. But it makes no sense that somebody has to come to the airport 6 hours before their flight just to make sure or hope that they get through security.
Have you ever listened to Nigeria's President Jonathan speak?
Yes.
Does he inspire you?
No.
I'm going to ask that question again. I'm talking about the President of Nigeria.
I know.
You've heard him speak?
Yes, I have.
And it doesn't inspire you?
Not in the least.
Can you mention one Nigerian politician that has inspired you when you listen to them speak?
Well, he's not a politician anymore. Donald Duke, who was the former governor of, I think that he had a lot of innovative ideas like TANAPA and things like, you know, the carnival, you know, things like that were very innovative, I think. I've seen tapes of, YouTubes of him speaking, but I wasn't around when he was governor, but I could see why people were so passionate about him.
You write a lot, and your words inspire other people, like your poem. What can you do to help, like, the President of Nigeria to improve in his speech, his speaking skills, and what have you? Like
what can I personally do to him, or
if
just
you
what
called
advice?
again and called today and said, look, what can we do to make things better in terms of his ability to deliver what he's saying?
Okay. He doesn't sound sincere when he speaks. A lot of the times that I've seen him, he's holding the paper and he's staring at the paper. Either memorize it or try to come from the heart in some kind of way. Look up so people will know that you're genuine, even if you're not. You have to look up. Speak clearly so that people will hear you. He doesn't connect.
The body language.
Yes, he doesn't connect at all. Like, he's just kind of just like somebody last minute handed him something to read, and so he's just reading it, and he doesn't know what it is that he's saying or what it means. He's not. He doesn't give off a leadership quality. And if you look at like leaders from like the States, let's say a Bill Clinton or a Barack Obama, the way that they engage and connect with people is what makes them extraordinary, and that's not a difficult thing. I mean, if you lack charisma, then it is a difficult thing. If you lack certain social skills, it's a difficult thing. But as a politician, it's something that can be learned. And I don't know who is advising him. I mean, like advisor to the president, not like random advisors, but like someone who was there to like. I've done workshops with people to teach them how to perform, and the standing command, like hold the ground that you're in. That's your space. You own it, and people will see how like it's a powerful stance. And then you're looking directly at people. And when you're saying, make sure that what you're saying matches with what your eyes are doing or what your hands are doing. So if you're saying she went up and you're pointing down, people are going to be like,
what was he talking about?
What was he talking about? And then they're distracted for the rest of the thing that you're saying. So he needs somebody to like coach him. A lot of the governors, well, not just the president, a lot of the governors need people to coach them on how to deliver speeches because they do not sound sincere. Very few of them sound sincere.
And you've been going up, back and forth between the US and Nigeria. Have you noticed any improvement in some areas?
No.
Nothing at all?
No.
Roads?
No, roads are terrible. No.
Flights, like when you fly, customer service?
Customer service like in the airplane?
Like in the airplane when you go to buy things, and government, you have dealings with government officials or public servants. Customer service, do people say?
Okay, something that's better. The television industry is better.
Okay.
Ebony Life TV is fantastic.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the stations come from South Africa, but the ones that are trying to do Nigerian programming are getting a lot better. There's still work that needs to be done, I think, to sort of sell it. I don't want to make it sound like Nigeria is just the worst place on the face of this earth, but I think that to pretend that Nigeria is the best place on the face of this earth and not do anything to make it better is a problem. So I'd rather be honest and say there's a lot wrong with it than to lie and say.
And the good thing about you is that you're not one of those saying it and staying in America. You're actually coming home to make your contribution.
Yeah.
And are we gonna hear Bassey Ikpi misses to a Nigerian man sometime in the nearest future?
No.
Are you going to say complete no to Nigerian men?
I'm saying I'm not getting married, so I'm not going to be Mrs. anything to anybody.
Bassey Ikpi, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
We really listen. Do we really see? Is this the great future?
I'm not getting married, so I'm not going to be Mrs. anything to anybody.
Is this where we thought we would be?
Thank you.
Are we really hoping? Do we really feel that the sins of the fathers will not let us be free? You see, frustration in my country. Welcome to my reality, and the people